Welcome to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, also known as
Snake Bros.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. We got a great show for you today. We have Mr. Thomas Spriggs in an interview with us today. He's going to talk to us about his book called Into Nowhere, which is about the missing 411 phenomenon. And he, if I've got this right, he found patterns in the shapes of the disappearances in the groups. But I'll let him go ahead and explain that. Go ahead, Mr. Spriggs. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it greatly. Basically, my story is I am a country boy. I'm from southern Ohio, a little town called Portsmouth on the Ohio River.
Okay.
Halfway between West Virginia and Cincinnati. I grew up hunting and fishing with my grandfather out in the woods all the time. On the edge of Shawnee State Forest is 63,000 acres, so it's big. And empty, and there's nobody back there. Hunted and fished. I never even heard of stories like this until a few years ago when David Paulides started coming out with his books.
Yeah.
I actually originally heard about him when it came to the Bigfoot DNA with Melba Ketchum.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
Because I'm close enough to Colorado that we catch a lot of their news, right? It just kind of gets circulated through the local stations.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, everybody picks it up. And then after that, he started coming out with the other books once I started realizing who he was. And I picked them up and started reading them, and just like everybody else, I was fascinated. I was sucked right in.
Yeah.
Because they're true stories. You don't have to make anything up.
Right.
I've researched so many of them on my own, and even more beyond what he has, or what he had in the books at the time.
Right.
You don't have to make any stories up. These things are all true. So, that was just red meat to me. It was just one of those things that fascinated me since I was a kid.
Yeah. About
Bigfoot and the woods and
just weirdness going on in the woods, basically. Yeah.
Really. Steph. I can't remember her last name off the top of my head. She also writes.
Steph Young.
I find her. Yeah, the English lady?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. I can listen to her all night long, man.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great.
But basically what happened was, as I started reading the books, it got to where little warning bells kind of started going off in my head after a while, because it's not just that there are things in the individual stories that tie them together, that link them together.
Right.
But they didn't seem like they were all that random as to where they were happening either. And the thing that finally set it off was there's two boys' stories that he tells in the books, North America and Beyond, about David Raleigh and then Fred Tukey Holmes, right?
Okay. You want to tell those, or briefly?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically what happened was the first one to disappear was Frederick. He disappeared from around Denman Mountain. He was actually on a Never Sink reservoir. Okay. And he disappeared in 1955. And as far as I remember, he's the one they never found.
Okay. David
Raleigh disappeared in 1959, 4 years later.
All right.
From Lake Winnesuke. They found his body on the other side of the mountain that was between the two boys.
Oh.
In the creek for Never Sink Reservoir.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
So now that really set off the little bells in my head, because now we're talking about they actually, and Mr. Paulides listed this in his book, they actually disappeared from opposite ends of a dirt road that went by the mountain that the one boy was found on.
Yeah.
So this is obviously something that knows that locale.
Right.
Or knew that locale. Was there more than once, right?
Yes.
And did the same thing twice.
Right.
And so I made a list. I just went through all his books, and I think there's 700 and some at the time. It was before Hunters, right before Hunters.
Right.
And I ended up with 700 and some, and then I just got online and just started researching. I mean, I'm sitting at work. At the time, I worked for the University of Phoenix technical support, and between calls, I'm sitting there, and I'm going through all the databases online for the disappearances and stuff, and digging them up and looking. And I found another 234 events. And I list them as events. If two people disappear at a time, that's just one event because they're both gone at the same time.
That's right.
And I was really interested in that pattern. And basically what I found was, if you look at those bigger areas and not just the little tiny chunks that Mr. Politis looks at in his books,
the clusters
that there's actually these large regions where the disappearances happen not forever apart, but once every couple of years, once every 3 years on average.
Right, and they seem to move. They move, and then they happen again a couple of years later, and then they move and happen again. But it's all in the same general area, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. If you look at the disappearances, for example, that take place around the Great Smoky Mountains National Park,
yes,
they would look to you, if you just looked inside the park, as random, because there's not all that many that actually take place inside the park itself.
right.
But that's not how that pattern works. That pattern is one of, during that early time, there was a disappearances that took place in the park, but there were also some disappearances that took place right around Birmingham, Alabama. They would go, the first one was near the park. The next 3 were down in Alabama. The next 3 were in the park.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
The last 3 in that set of 10, in those early set of disappearances, took place almost dead in the middle, around Magic Mountain on the border of Georgia and Tennessee, as if to say, "Hey, I'm walking back and forth here."
Yeah. Right.
That's crazy.
Okay. Then there was a little girl that he mentioned in one of his books that disappeared from the lowlands in northern part of North Carolina, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If you look at that happens within that's continuation of a time range. I basically put a 3-year limit on it.
Okay.
I basically say that if I say I put a 5-year limit on it. Basically, after 5 years, whatever was doing this got bored, moved, went back to whatever stars from, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then after 5 years, the set has to start all over again, and it has to go for 10 years, or I don't really consider it a regional outbreak.
Okay.
The next one is that little girl that disappeared from northern North Carolina. It's on a little road. You can throw a baseball the length of it, he said. The only thing they found of her was 2 footprints in near the edge of a swampy area. The next disappearance after that was at a place in North Carolina about halfway back to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park at Pilot Mountain. I can't remember the person's name. I apologize.
It's all right.
The next one is back in the park again. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So it definitely seems like something's moving back and forth. Yeah.
Exactly. But I apologize. I'm not good with remembering the names of these for some reason.
That's all right.
Yeah, no worries, man.
I'm not either. I'll be like, there's a guy that disappeared, and then I don't even know where it was.
No, yeah, but give me just a minute here, because he was the big one that disappeared.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at
see.
one of your region areas right here. I think this is
Farewell.
This is in Pennsylvania.
No, oh my goodness. Dennis Lloyd Martin. That's right.
Oh yeah, Dennis Martin.
The third one in that list, coming back to the park, was Dennis Lloyd Martin.
Okay.
And that's why I worked so hard to look this up here.
Yeah, Dennis Martin is a big one. Yeah.
Because that was a big case, right?
Yes.
That was the one where the Rangers and everything was involved.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got these two things, these disappearances. The first one take place to the southwest of the park, just kind of bouncing back and forth. And the next one is almost literally like somebody started at the coast and just walked inland and just grabbed somebody every so often.
Right.
So there's patterns to it like that it is, and that's not the worst one. There was another boy that disappeared just a mile down the road from where Dennis Lloyd Martin disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
that was another big case too, right?
No.
Oh, okay, it wasn't.
Nope, not that one.
All right.
Let's see. This next one I want to talk about is actually in South Carolina.
Okay.
Because in a lot of these, I find that there are regions, and then there are little tiny areas outside of those regions that are much smaller.
Yeah, the outliers.
Where
yeah.
kind of outliers, yes.
Yes.
And they get tossed in. There'll be like 3 or 4 within the region, and there'll be 1 outside.
Yeah, that's
3 or 4, 5 in the region, 1 outside. Yeah. And they're in the same place outside. So once again, it looks intentional when you map it out.
right.
Right?
Yeah, I found that was one of the weirdest things I remember in your book was like you had these regions that were like kind of ovals on the map, and you had all the disappearances marked. But there would be like 3 or 4 that are just outside of the region, kind of in a straight line with each other or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was just strange. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So here's the deal with that. After Dennis Lloyd Martin disappears, and then the next boy disappears inside the park, it establishes this area near Charleston, South Carolina, as this outlier. The first boy that disappeared from that little outlier section, his name is Michael Woodward. He was just a little boy. I think he was 2 or 3. His father actually worked for Fort Jackson. He was an officer at Fort Jackson. His son disappeared while he was mowing grass. So that's bold, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The Army put 2 helicopters in the air. They had like 400 people out looking for the boy at one point. They had horses. They had motorcycles. They never found as much as a footprint or a wrapper or anything of this boy. This disturbed them so bad that if you look online a few years ago, they reopened this case. It disturbed them that bad.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, that is. If you don't find anything, that's gonna drive people nuts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and how hard is that? I mean, his father's dead now. I mean, he died with never getting to know what happened to his son. And I found this was like this all over the country, that these regions, they spring up and there'll be disappearances, and then for a while they may go totally, just nothing.
Right.
Not even a footprint. Nobody disappear. Nobody think about disappearing or running away or whatever. And then the region will come back up, or it'll move. Right?
Yes.
But with what I have now with new cases, because I'm still like keeping track of stuff as much as I can.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. If I were to add those in, a little over 2/3 of all the disappearances that are taking place take place inside those regions or those sets of outliers.
Oh wow. Okay. So
So that's pretty hefty because we're looking at, I could probably get up to 950 cases. We're talking 650 out of that 950 occur within those small areas.
Yeah.
Did you actually go on my public page and see the map where I put all those areas together?
No, I haven't seen that. No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, if you go on the Facebook and you actually just go to Tom Spriggs, not my personal page, but just Tom Spriggs' public page I have.
Okay.
I actually last winter went and started the map again and just put the regions in, just so you can see where all the regions were compared to one another over time.
Yeah. Do you have like a Google map of it or anything, like with all the markers in there?
I don't have the markers on that one.
Okay.
Because it's so big.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, most of the markers I got where I could probably just transfer them over pretty easily.
Yeah.
But some of them I have to go back and kind of stamp them in. And that's going to be a project. I actually just finished another book. So I write about various things. So I actually just finished another book and got it copyrighted and onto Amazon.com.
Cool. What is it?
It's just a history of King David from the Old Testament and his
nice.
family.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check that
Because
out.
his family, man, they were a dumpster fire. And I just thought, that'd be a good,
Yeah, that's
a good
great.
subject to write a book about. So
cool.
I did.
Cool.
So I still write. I still stay active with all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big areas themselves, they change. And it's the oddest thing, the way they change. In New York, the early heavy set of disappearances that took place up and down New England took place around the Bennington Triangle.
Yeah.
Around Bennington in the mountains in that area.
Yes.
At the very southern end of Vermont,
Right.
the northern end of Connecticut,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And there was small outliers for that. And then that one died out. And then disappearances started in New England again, but they shifted. They shifted up to where they're up in the Adirondacks now. And down in that Bennington Triangle, there's nothing. Just like someone just literally just packed up and just moved.
Yeah.
Well, what time?
And the
Like,
whole
how long are we talking about here between like the first set of cases and like where it's moved now? Is it within a human generation or is this too long?
yeah, like I said, I basically said it after about 5 years that they cut off, right, and then it starts up a new set again. Yeah, I think that if I remember right, those ended in the late 60s, started again in the early 70s.
Oh, okay.
In the New England area.
Yeah.
That was not, that wasn't a very long time at all.
Right. Some of them do go dormant for a long time, like 30 years or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Some of them don't. They go away for 7 or 8 years and then they come right back. Yeah.
Yep. And there's precursors too, which is also an odd thing.
Yeah, that's right. Precursors.
Because you'll have a disappearance, maybe 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends. And then you won't have any more for a few years, and then all of a sudden, those disappearances will just bloom up and become this regional outbreak after time.
Yeah. But it's like there's some test cases in the beginning or something like that.
Yeah, like testing the water.
Yeah.
Man,
Which is the whole thing strikes me as a being done by intelligence.
Absolutely. It's like on purpose.
It's almost like a learned behavior.
Well, okay. I can see that too, yeah. But I was
You know
thinking
what
like,
I'm saying?
yeah, I was thinking like the way that they sort of hopscotch around, so that so it's like they understand how our little communities work. If we had multiple disappearances in one small community within a couple of years, people would be flipping out, right? So they don't do that. They have a disappearance in this one small town, and then a few years later, there's another one in another small town that's maybe 70 miles away from that first one or something like that. And so they don't really. There's no really connection there. Those two towns don't talk to each other really. They don't interchange news. So, they keep doing that. They bounce around in these regions that are just large enough to keep the news isolated. You know what I'm saying? So that so that there's not. In other words, it's like cattle or something. They're treating us like cattle. Like if you're gonna do something scary to one of the cattle, you kind of want to take it away from the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's true though. I mean, it seems like that when there's enough people in the woods looking, enough people keeping their eyes out, going out and looking for people, then it shifts away from that.
Right, and it starts dropping the bodies on the trails. Like, come here, stop looking, get out of here. That's what I always think of when they find the body on a trail or something that they've been using the whole time. It's like something wants them out of the woods.
Yep, and I think that this would probably be a good spot for just a minute to kind of give people an idea of why I find these so interesting and what I find disturbing about them.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So, and like I said, I have new ones, and I think this one explains it really well.
Okay.
It was almost a year ago now. He disappeared on May the 27th, 2017. There was a little 3-year-old boy. They didn't give his full name. They only gave his first name of Ezra. He disappeared in the Sam Houston National Forest, okay, down near Houston, on the eastern edge of the little really loose Texas outbreak they had for a while.
Yeah.
He was camping and disappeared on that Saturday afternoon. They brought out searchers. They had over 100, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
They searched for him for an entire day. They found him on Sunday afternoon, 400 yards from the last place he was seen.
Journey well.
Okay, so here's the thing. They had 200 searchers out in the field at one point looking for this boy. They were on motorcycles. They had like pictures of the search on one of the one of the local newspapers websites.
Yeah.
It was fairly flat ground, at least part of it, from what you could see from the pictures of the motorcycle riders. You could see all the way through the trees, like you do when the forest is kind of flat.
Right.
You would think that first 1,000 yards around that area where that boy disappeared would be basically trampled flat, right?
Yes.
Because you're going to fan out, and you're not going to not cover the places that are in close like that.
Practically arm in arm, yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I know motorcycles, I mean, going back and forth like that, you should be able to go fast enough to cover a whole lot of it and put a whole lot of people on it, and sooner or later see something.
Yeah.
So think about it like this.
To your own.
If he had wandered off and they found him the next day, say 3/4 of a mile away, be like, meh, they just missed him the day before, right?
Yeah.
No problem. If they had gone out and they'd have found him in 15 minutes, 400 yards
Yeah, not a big
from where he disappeared, so we found him.
Yeah.
How did he get back to that spot? Because there was no way he was there the evening before.
Right.
And that's what makes these things disturbing, is that the timing and the coincidence of them is just bizarre.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense when you sit there and you think about going out and looking for someone who's lost in the woods.
Right. It's like being lost is not what's happening.
Yeah, and being 400 yards away, you should be able to respond to
a
calls.
shout. Yeah.
Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to hear somebody shouting for you. So,
Yeah, and so, that's one of those things that you just scratch your head at and you think, oh my gosh, how did that happen?
Yeah. There was a similar case I read about. I was trying to find it for the show, but I couldn't. But it wasn't from this country. It was from like Malaysia or something like that, where the kid had gone missing, and there was this enormous search, and he had gone missing on the edges of the jungle, and there was this enormous search for him or whatever, and like they were searching for days, and they didn't find a single trace of him. And all of a sudden, he's kind of like, they just see him sort of like wandering around on the creek bed underneath this bridge, which is the spot where he disappeared from. Like, it was the exact spot where he was last seen. That'll like for you guys, if you ever find that, forward that to me, please. So I think I have that one. Because they talked to him, and he was saying that he didn't ever leave that spot. Like, he was like, I didn't go anywhere, but for some reason he couldn't. It was saying that he was aware of the searchers, but he couldn't talk to them, and they didn't see him or whatever. It was a very strange story. I'll look for it, because I remember reading that. And I was like, this is a 411 case for sure.
Yeah.
Like, the kid was like, he was out of phase.
The only way I can say this much, I don't hold back quite so much on my opinion on this.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the map and you look at those areas and how they change and everything, I think it's safe to say that this is some sort of predator. It's doing some sort of predation on the people that are being taken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working in areas that it knows it can get by with it.
Right.
They aren't all by really high areas like mountain ranges. like the regions at the western end of the Great Lakes, that's obviously fairly low territory.
Yeah.
But it's all heavily wooded, and it all has access to other places they can get in and out of.
Right. Like they can, without being seen, they can move through the deep woods and go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I don't shy away from using the word predator. Because it's some sort of predator.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the way these happen, it's just it's almost as if there's something that's like either physically or spiritually or technologically just overwhelming.
Yes. Yeah,
person.
Yeah, I made a list of things that I called him the perp, the perpetrator or whatever it is, that he had to be able to do in order to execute all these disappearances. And I'll find it and read it to you in a bit. It was an amazing list. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Go for it.
My brothers, Russ here, talked a lot about the way David Paulides chose the cases, because obviously he went through a lot of records and he picked the original set of cases based on the similarities between them, and it was kind of like they were unsolved in some way, and there were mysterious things about them.
Develop a profile,
like a profile for them. Did you kind of use the same sort of profile for the cases you picked that were extra, or were your cases that you picked more oriented towards the patterns you were seeing?
No, I basically, because I didn't know what I would find at first, with hunting for them, I just went ahead and grabbed all of the ones that met those basic standards, like Ezra, reappearing just out of the blue like that.
Right. Okay.
Right. That's one of those things that's just it fits the pattern.
Right. So you were following. You were sort of following in the profile that Paulides had kind of keyed in on when you were looking for the extra ones. Okay. Cool. That's cool.
So there shouldn't be a whole lot in here that you would go back and you would look at out of my list and think, that doesn't really belong on here.
Yeah.
I didn't think
most of them should found really similar.
So Brett put up a graphic that shows he has the full United States map with all of your regions located, and then underneath is the key for all the regions. And I was looking at the far bottom right corner, South Central California, and it's interesting. It's like the two central California patterns, 1933 to 1945, and then the other one is 1951 to present, are like oriented in the same sort of direction. And then the two that are South Cali, 1953 to 1966 and 1988 to 2015, are also oriented in the same direction, but they're tilted more. It's like that's so weird, dude. They're all four ovals, and in the two central areas they're oriented in the same direction, and the two South Cali areas are oriented in the same direction. They're longer.
And if you look at that South Cali one, it's like there was like a little outbreak, and then it stopped, and then it became a bigger outbreak. It spread. Right. It goes all the way over to Salton Sea now, basically. Whereas before it was just a little tiny area. That's one of the other things that disturbs me about this, is that, like I said, these don't all just take place at like high altitude.
Right.
This thing will come down to the edge of Los Angeles and grab a kid.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's bold, right?
Yes, it is bold. Yeah.
You're standing on some cliff or on top of some hill somewhere, and you're looking out, and you see a city spread out beyond you, and you don't belong there because of whatever it is you are. But you'll walk down into the suburbs and grab somebody.
That implies some massive stealth, right? That's what I think.
Of some sort. Because I mean, how did the bus drivers, people driving by? I mean, I understand if Bigfoot walked into the middle of somebody's town, there would be people that would have doubts, and they would take their time, their minds and their heads to come around.
That wasn't real. That wasn't Bigfoot.
So we don't want to see things.
There's just another guy walking around in a Bigfoot suit over there.
Yeah, exactly. But there is some of that. If we don't want to see things, we don't want to see bad things. But that doesn't explain how often this happens on the edge of these cities.
Right.
The one thing I never got to mention on the other interviews is if you look at that map, there are some empty spots. Right?
Yeah, yes, right down the middle for one. Yeah.
Right down the middle.
Yeah.
But there's some other ones too. There's a big spot around Nevada.
Yeah.
I would too.
And then if you look at the ones in the California, you'll notice that the whole length of the Imperial Valley and San Joaquin Valley is basically nothing.
Yeah, like right. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. That's interesting.
So
Okay, that seems
There-
like a way, like another point to do research. What is it geographically about these areas that that is so different from the areas where the disappearances are happening? Because it seems like, I mean, there's people there, especially in that big swath in the middle of the United States. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't it happen there? There's definitely state parks.
And there's
There's,
a predator that doesn't like or doesn't.
yeah, that would be an interesting thing to study.
yeah, and I wanted to throw that out because, you know, if you look, there's also the area around Louisiana, Mississippi, and you'd think, oh, there's
Yes.
you know, there's
Nothing but swamp.
alligators in there, right?
Yeah.
There's swamp, there's snakes.
Yep.
But there's only, as far as I could tell, I only found one disappearance in Mississippi and only 4 in LA,
You
in
could in
Louisiana.
my life.
Wow.
I would. Were I in your
That's it.
position.
Yeah. Swamp people.
I mean, they're
are-
odd that they occur when they do occur, just like everywhere else, but
Yeah. Well, swamp people
There's
are
something
hardcore,
about-
man. You know, maybe the predator just doesn't want to mess with swamp people. They're pretty hardcore.
yeah, and now so are alligators.
Yeah.
I don't want to
So
mess
what
with an
about-
alligator. I don't wrestle with no alligator.
What about the Everglades?
In Florida, yeah.
There are some, but Florida has almost 30 that I was able to find altogether.
War
Uh-huh.
nights.
But they were scattered over time, and none of them really came together.
Okay, so they didn't make a region.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Brett's pointing
and see,
out.
and that's
Brett's pointing out that the lack of forest areas in the Great Plains and the deserts in the middle, there's like hardly any forest. I mean, if you've ever driven,
Yeah.
like we live in Texas, so when we drive to California, it's just like that whole section is just nothing.
Yeah.
You
Rocks
know.
and rubble and grass. Yeah.
So maybe
oh yeah.
you were talking about how there's usually a forest or something deep where it can get in and out, you know, without being seen. That could be.
Yeah, that's true because they do snatch people like in like boulder fields or very desolate areas where there's no greenery, but that's always like adjoining a place with deep forest or something. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and there's at least, I would say it this way, there's at least rough terrain available to get back to.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in the rough terrain, but there has to be rough terrain pretty much close by. You know, like at the western end of the Great Lakes there,
Yeah.
if you go around the Great Lakes, you can end up in Canada, and man, you
Right.
forget it there.
Yeah.
There's people who can march in there, and nobody will find them for years and years and years if they
Yes.
wanted to hide out.
That's right.
But yeah, that's fascinating just in and of its own, just the empty areas. Of course, you know, where I'm at, Phoenix, there's not much.
Right.
Although that has changed. I put Arizona in as a developing region into the book.
Yeah.
And I just kind of did that originally on a hunch.
Uh-huh.
But now I have some stories to tell you.
Oh, good. I mean, not good, but yeah, let's hear them.
So, so last summer, on July the 18th, a little boy named Jesse Wilson, who was 10 years old, disappeared. From what I understand from talking about and reading about the story, he was known for slipping out of his bedroom every once in a while, and he'd wander around the neighborhood, and then he'd come back home. He lived in down here in the desert area part of it. It's over on in a little town called Buckeye on the far western end of the Phoenix metro area.
Okay.
It's the last thing before you leave civilization. They built some malls on the near side of it, but once you get way out into Buckeye, where they were at, he was over on like, what was it, 239th Avenue. So, I mean, that's
Yeah, it's way out.
way on the other side of town. But he disappeared, and they had large searches for him. And I'll tell you something, this stuff is fun as far as like being titillating and fascinating to read about and everything.
Yeah.
it's a little different when you're sitting here watching the news.
Yeah.
And you're watching people in your community drive out on the four-wheelers into the desert to look for someone.
Yeah.
That makes it take a little bit different of a coloration for you.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't so far away.
Right.
It's my understanding now they found his body, and they said that they're looking for someone who was involved. But I don't have any details, and I never saw any details on it, and it's something I need to dig up and look at.
I mean,
but he's... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I've always noticed that with these cases that the endings are so unsatisfying. Like, in other words, like, they have all these clues, and you're like, okay, clearly there was something more than just somebody got lost here, right? Or they'll be like, well, we're gonna get the, send it off to the forensics. We're gonna get the coroner's report, and we never get that. We don't ever get the coroner's report. We don't ever get no answers ever come. They just kind of want to leave it at like this person got lost and then we found them alive or dead, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, or you someone's disappeared and you put months into going out looking for them whenever you could, right?
Yeah.
And somebody stumbles across them.
Yeah.
And the list of cause of death is listed as hypothermia or whatever.
Exposure. Yeah. Exposure.
Yeah. Exposure. Yeah.
God,
it's like
annoying. You're like, it was summer.
Yeah, it just makes you gnash your teeth.
Yeah. Because it was summer. How did he die of hypothermia?
Yeah, exactly. They were in shorts. Come on now. Give me a break here, right?
Yeah.
But he's not the part that makes this story weird.
Okay.
Over there on that side of town, most of the stuff that's being built up in Buckeye is to the south side of the highway.
Okay.
The north side of it, if you drive a little further out, is where Luke Air Force Base is. There's a range of mountains there, and Luke Air Force Base is on the other side of it. On this side of it, there's a bunch of farms and nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about. If you drive from here, even from here to California, you go through a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
So, on September 3rd last year, the Buckeye Police Department fished a young lady named Gabrielle Field Gutierrez out of a canal. Okay?
Yeah.
That was on the north side of that. And I've looked this up. They found her near, they said Hazen and Miller Roads. It's just farm. Okay? Her mother didn't think anything of her being gone because she was 18 anyway. And she would often take off and go spend the weekend at friends' houses and then come back, right?
Yeah.
So the police are out here. They're probably just doing extra trips, trying to look for signs of the boy or just covering the area because they need to patrol it now. They know, they need to keep their eyes out on stuff. But here's the weird part about that story. When they fished her out of the canal, they tried to revive her at first. So she wasn't in the water very long.
Right, they thought she might still be,
Yeah, they thought she might have just fallen in and drowned. Because if she'd have been in there for a day, the cops would have looked at her and says, okay, well, we need to call the morgue.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? But if you know anything about driving on these dusty roads out here, there's no way to go in and out of these little dirt roads like that without kicking up some rocks.
Yeah.
And making a sign that you're there.
Right.
But they never reported seeing anybody around, just the body.
Yeah, so they tried to revive her as though she was just there, but there was no way for her to get there. Or no way for someone. There was no sign. There was no sign that anybody had been there.
Right, and she didn't have any enemies from what her parents and everything were saying. Everybody seemed to like the girl just fine.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just that he disappeared. It's just that now she appears and nobody even knew she was gone.
Yeah. And she appears in the canal.
And nobody knows how she got in the canal.
Right.
And isn't that a common story in his books?
Yes, and the later ones, when they start, he goes to the smiley face killers.
You're looking at the beginning of a cluster.
Yeah.
So did she have GHB? They probably didn't test for it.
They wouldn't. Yeah, out here, they probably wouldn't even have looked for that.
Yeah. Were they able to determine if she drowned? Because a lot of those cases he found where they find the body in the canal, it turns out that they didn't die of drowning.
I need to do some more research. I need to pick up and do some more research as far as what I know of.
Yeah.
They didn't at the time give a reason for death.
Right.
And it sent the body to the coroners, and I never saw anything on her after that.
Right.
So.
That's what I was saying. Like, you probably won't find. You'll have to call them directly to get any
Phrecia
information.
unsettles me. His
and that's
inclination.
Yeah. Just tell them you're a reporter. You know.
Killing me will bring
Yeah.
no
Research for a
comfort
book.
to your precious art.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's just that story that weird thing that just keeps happening. It's not just one set of circumstances. It becomes this tangled web of. So how do you fit this square peg into this round hole like that?
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think that there's a purpose to this that's more than just predation?
There could be.
Yeah.
You would think, though, that at some point we'd have some idea of why. And there could be that there have been some clues, like the little boy that Gladys talks about, who said he had a robotic grandma that wanted the poo on the sticky tape or whatever.
Right. Said that they put him in his mother's womb and he was from the stars. Yeah. That was really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we don't have enough clarity to say that.
Right.
And the problem is, with that is, what's the point of leaving some of the bodies where they can be found?
Yeah, well,
Right?
that's what Russ was saying. Is
maybe
going to go.
we just want to return them.
They want to get the people to stop looking.
They want
That was
people
what I
out of
was
their
like.
area. Yeah, they want all those hundreds of searchers to leave their area. That's what I think. When they put the body somewhere easy to find.
Like right on the path that everybody took.
So like, here, go away. Yeah. They know that they will. They won't treat. They'll never. Even though that's so strange, they'll never treat it as a criminal thing. You know? It's like, how did this body appear when you guys were using this path every freaking day? You know it wasn't there yesterday. How did it get there? And they're like, well, we found him. Let's go home. You know.
Yep.
I don't know.
The thing that really gets me about it is like the length of time.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm looking at your map key here, and it's like the earliest one looks like 1880s.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
Yeah.
that's too long for a human to be doing this. Now, if it would, you know, it would. Granted, there could be some weird like type of, you know, quote unquote secret society group that does this for some weird ritualistic reasons, you know,
But it's global too. That makes it hard to.
yeah, it's just that none of that really makes sense until, you know, you start thinking about either something that we are completely and totally unaware of or something supernatural.
Yeah. The dogs also. The fact that the tracking dogs can't find sense, or that part makes me think like this can't be people. Like unless this is some unknown technology that can erase odor. You know what I mean? Like that's what always gets me.
So, and there was another story that took place here in Colorado. I'm gonna actually share this link with
Okay, good.
guys.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can get to the story. Just let me check. I want to make sure the story's filled.
Okay. Meanwhile, I found this list of.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, I'm going to send you this link.
Cool.
We'll have the official
And,
show observer check it out.
Yeah, it's for a magazine called Outside Online. It's an online magazine.
I read that article. I think I read that one.
Did you read that?
Yes, that's a good.
About? Yeah, about Joseph Floyd Keller.
Yes.
He disappeared in 2015.
Yeah, that's a good article. It's very good.
That's one of those bizarre ones because they searched for him for a long time.
Yeah.
If you remember from that article, they kept going back.
Yeah.
Kept paying people, like getting search dogs and everything, right?
Yes. Is that the kid that was jogging? Is that what that was?
The kid that was jogging, he
Yes.
decided he wanted, and they were able to track from his watch where he went. He had one
Yeah.
of those, those watches where you could track it, and he went up on some cliffs, and then he just disappeared, and nobody found him. And it was interesting because a former offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, John Rienstra, actually found his body in a boulder field.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing. You would think that after his body laying there all that time, and as many times as they went by there,
They would have smelled it.
yeah, why didn't the dogs pick anything up? Why didn't the people pick anything up?
Yeah,
I mean, she's
it's
talking
crazy.
about, I wish I'd gone, 100 feet or whatever.
Yeah.
She said she went within several hundred yards of it.
Yeah,
right?
she was saying that, like, so they would be walking the ridge line up above, looking down below, and his body was down there
Yeah.
in the rocks the whole time. Like, no, you would have smelled it. Number one, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he was dead. He wasn't crawling away like under a boulder or anything.
Right.
I mean, he was eventually found by somebody. It's just how do you do that? How does someone disappear when you can see where they were?
Right.
That's the weird thing about these cases.
Yeah.
Is that they're disappearing almost within sight.
Yes, like the one of the ones that's always bothered me is the one with the kid, the little boy, and his dad are like they're berry picking, and the kid's within like 10 feet of his father, but they're kind of in a thick berry patch, and the kid just like vanishes, like right there next to his dad. Like I remember when we were first looking into these, I was playing an interview of David Politis, and that one came on, and Kyle was like, "Oh my God, I don't even want to hear this story. Oh my God, that's terrible."
Yeah.
Like you could be out there with your kid as a father, and he just vanishes within 10 feet of you, and you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, you can't, and you never find him. That's
insane.
That's crazy. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
done. Man, I don't know why I didn't put the date down for this, but this was also recent. This was just in the last couple of years or so.
Okay.
Hello.
Just to give you an idea of like, when I talk about these regional outbreaks and these, where people disappear and they disappear specifically there.
Yeah.
There was a guy, and you can look him up. His name was Chris Fowler. He was 31 years old. He loved the outdoors, been hiking, taken up hiking for years. He actually was hiking from the Mexico border to the Canada border on the Pacific Crest Trail.
Wow.
Okay. He starts out in the southern part of the trail on the Mexican border. He manages to make his way north. He makes it past Sequoia. He makes it past Yosemite. He makes it past the Sierras. Yeah. He makes it past Crater Lake. He makes it all the way up to Washington, the state of Washington. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he gets to the area around Blowout Mountain, which is just 35 miles north of the Chinook Pass.
Okay.
It's in Yakima County,
All right.
right?
Yeah.
He basically walks in to that northern region of disappearances there around the capital of Seattle and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he walks into it, it's almost like he walks into a bug zapper. Boom, he's gone.
Man.
Here's the thing, though, and it's weird. You catch little clues like this,
Yeah.
that something's odd. If you listen to what the witnesses and the searchers and the people that are actually there say,
Yeah.
one of the rangers that was involved in the search for him said that the trail was not particularly difficult in that area where he
Right.
disappeared, and it's wide enough that it's shallow enough. There's no threat of falling off a cliff there.
Right. Yep.
And I've described it that way before. It's almost like walking into a bug zapper, just bang.
Yes.
And you're whatever it is that these people are getting zapped into.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. He crosses all that ground and he goes into one of those regions and just vanishes.
Right, and he goes through like three of the most.
Yeah, I guess like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, like Yosemite and Crater Lake are two of the most like serious ones for disappearances. He goes through, there's no problem. Then he gets up there in Washington, gone.
Yep, but that one's a current one.
Yeah,
one
that's true.
It's active now,
Yeah.
and when he walks into it, man, it was just over.
Oh, okay. So the region was active.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, he just walked into an active region. When he walked into it, it was his turn.
Oh my God.
He rolled the dice, and you know,
Oh, that's crazy.
that was that.
All right. Where are the active regions right now? I'm not going there.
Yeah, so we know. Yeah, where not to go.
Oh, that's what that map is for. The ones in California, I found to be kind of interesting as far as that map goes.
Uh-huh.
going back to.
We have it in the chat window if you want to look.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, there was an earlier time in Washington and in Washington and Oregon where those ones were basically put together, right?
Yeah.
And then they kind of split apart. And the most recent thing to crop up is that little green circle there in the northern part of California.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. So don't go there.
That area, that was the area where, if you remember back in the 50s, they originally found the footprints that gave us the name of Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
Right in that region. And it had a few scattered ones, but then it became a region. More recently, the California ones, the Sierras with the little secondary ones, those didn't really change much. They've gotten bigger.
Yeah.
But that range there, that blue circle on top there, between Oregon and Washington.
Okay. Yeah.
That was the early set. And the two orange ones to the north and south of that, those are the current sets. That split and moved.
I see.
Until 1965, there, as far as I know, there were no disappearances in Olympia National Park. And now it's a part of that regional outbreak. I'm telling you, it's just it's got to be some sort of intentionality that.
Yes. So hey, did you read that news story that was recently, I guess in the last month or two, where the guy was skiing with his family or whatever?
State.
Was it New York?
He was in New York State, and he just like disappears. They start a massive search for him, and then he shows up in California.
Like 2 weeks later or something.
Yeah.
He's in California. He's still wearing the same clothes.
Yeah, he's still wearing his ski gear. Doesn't remember anything between. He doesn't know how he got there. Yeah, that was a weird story.
And then they were just like, oh, he must have like
ridden with a trucker.
Yeah, hitched a ride with a truck driver, and he didn't say any of that.
Yeah, he's just like, I don't know what happened.
He shows up in California disoriented, doesn't know how he got there.
Yeah.
Still wearing his ski clothes 2 weeks later or whatever it was.
Craziness.
Yeah, that's crazy too. Because if you think about it, even if he's with the truck driver, it's going to take at least 5 days.
Yeah.
For him to drive cross country.
Right.
Oh yeah, he was a firefighter.
I mean, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to just be loopy and not remember.
And to wear the same freaking clothes, like wearing like. I mean, when you're skiing in New York, it's fine to wear a bunch of ski stuff, but like when you're down off the mountain and you still have all your ski gear on, like he had the goggles on his head.
Yeah.
Like,
on the beach.
Yeah, like he's in California, like still wearing his ski gear. Like bro, you're.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a firefighter. So like that reminded me of the. There's been a couple of firefighters that have disappeared very strangely in these, like they, almost like they're targets. There was that one guy in California that he went hiking with one of his friends. Do you remember that one? He went hiking out there on this trail, and they were both firefighters. And his friend claimed that he went chasing after his dog in the middle of the night.
Yes, I do remember that one. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I can't either. Yeah, I followed that story while it was happening. And there were so many weird things about it. I'm like, okay, he ran off after his dog in the middle of that desert with no shoes on and no shirt.
Yeah.
That's what his friend said. I'm like, who does that?
Yeah. I mean,
if my dog goes running off into the woods, I don't chase it. I call it if I want to come back because I know I can't chase the dog, right? I don't know. I didn't understand a lot of stuff about that story. It's very strange. But people seem to act weirdly in these situations too.
Yeah. There is some sense that the people that are involved in this, even when they're found, are confused.
Yes, they're very confused.
Or handicapped.
Right.
As Mr. Plaitis points out. But
yeah.
He's not the only one to come back. That's not been able to remember things. If you remember, there was a story told of someone who disappeared. I believe he disappeared from either the Upper Peninsula or the Lower Peninsula of Michigan, and his foot tracks went out into the snow, and then just stopped in the middle of the lake.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, like 6 months later, he woke up in a field.
Yeah, that's a weird story. Yeah.
With different clothes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And had no idea what happened to him.
Right.
That's insane, man.
Yeah, there was the ones where the foot tracks they're following them out in the snow and they just stop, and the person's nowhere to be found. Like those are weird. Yeah.
Oh yeah. One of the ones I found, and I'm gonna look it up real quick here.
Can I not have but a moment's respite?
I was thinking, Russ, you should read that list.
Oh yeah, I've got this list here.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so I kind of compiled this. You know, like this is like basically the stuff that this thing would have to be able, the perpetrator, the predator would have to be able to do. So it's okay. So he would have to be uninhibited by terrain, no matter how rugged. Uninhibited by rivers, lakes, swamps, mud, muck. Uninhibited by inclement weather of any kind or strength. Uninhibited by darkness. Uninhibited by extremes of heat, cold, or altitude. Uninhibited by debilitating flora defenses like cactus, spines, thorns, nettles. You know, like sometimes they find people, they're all ripped up, but obviously that thing doesn't care. Capable of approaching to within arm's reach of people while remaining completely concealed and undetected. Capable of completely overwhelming even the largest, most physically fit adults in seconds without making a sound or allowing the victim to make one. Capable of abducting full-grown adults completely silently, such that people only a few meters away can neither hear nor see anything. Uninhibited by weight of the person being abducted. Leave almost no scent that search and rescue dogs can track. Additionally, can apparently mask the scent of an abducted human. Able to conceal heat signatures from forward-looking infrared radar. Able to induce altered state and memory loss in human victims. Able to self-conceal completely even in open environments that are lacking any kind of cover at all. Able to abduct hundreds or possibly thousands of people each year for the past 200 years or more without humans becoming aware that anything is happening. Able to affect domesticated dogs in some way that is not clear, perhaps to use them as a lure. And able to move about with impunity even amongst hundreds of search and rescue, National Park Service, law enforcement officers, FBI, and security, and place victims' bodies in places searched many times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a heck of a list, isn't it?
Yes. That is not, you know, like that's if that's a predator and it's just a predator, that's like a freaking super predator. You know.
Yeah, that's something we don't understand.
Right.
And,
yeah.
and that's what I mean. Ultimately, that's what this boils down to.
Yes.
That, this is something we don't understand. We don't understand how this is happening like that.
Right. Exactly.
We don't understand how Ezra ended up back here, just not even a quarter. Not even a half mile away or anything from where he was disappeared.
Yeah.
You can't grasp your mind around because there's something going on there that we don't know. And that's the part that's scary, is that we don't know.
Right, yeah.
How do you defend yourself from something that we don't even know how it happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've wondered about that too. Like, you think about that and the fact that these people who disappear, they like right before they disappeared or whatever, they have experienced or witnessed something that no other human is aware exists. Right? Like, think about that. Like, whatever this thing is, it does not exist in our common consciousness. Like, we don't have any concept of what it could be. I mean, people think it might be Bigfoot or what could be whatever, but like whatever it is, whatever it really actually is something that we don't have a common picture of. And like, these people who disappear experience this thing that will be totally outside of their, of their consideration at all. Like that I think about that a lot. Like, what do they see?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they don't.
Yeah. What did they go through?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, especially when they find the bodies like months later and find out that they only died a few weeks before. Like, you're like, okay, where were they? They were still alive this whole time. What was happening to them? Yeah, it's terrifying.
So that's one of the things that we talk about too, is that like if more people, especially law enforcement and people that have to deal with these disappearances, if they would become more conscious of this possibility that this is something truly that we do not understand, that if they would see these connections like you have, like Paulides has, and that became more of a common knowledge amongst people that actually have to deal with these situations, we might get closer to figuring out what's going on. But as long as they're just like, oh, it's just a missing person and we're going to do our normal thing and we're just looking for, all the normal stuff, or somebody who's lost, it's like we're still going to be in the dark.
Yeah, and then the searchers go out and they're doing their best. They want to find somebody.
Right.
And if they find them, whether it's dead or alive, they go home and forget about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we really need is I think we need to start with documentation. I think what we really need is there needs to be like a national website where when a disappearance occurs, that the SAR leader can get maps for that area.
Yeah.
Plot out where they're going to go, right?
Yeah.
Upload the maps to show us where they went.
Yes.
And then when the people go out in the field and they find something, they can take pictures of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that tells
And
us
you can
a part
upload
of
it to the map.
story.
Yes.
And then upload it to that database so we can go in and we can look at what they saw.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, there's one story that Mr. Pleiades tells in one of his books, and there's a picture in there of a little boy that disappeared that was found because the guy just refused to give up looking for it.
Yeah.
And a reporter was there and took the boy's picture. As far as I know of, as far as I've seen, that is pretty close to nearly the only picture I've seen of someone at the spot that they were found after a disappearance.
Yeah.
We don't know what the rest of it really looked like.
And didn't he have a
because
1,000-yard
nobody
stare?
took the picture.
Yeah.
Huh?
Didn't the boy have like a 1,000-yard stare or something like that? He was kind of a.
Yeah, and he was covering his legs up with leaves. And
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a weird picture.
So, but we need that kind of. We need to start gathering information up enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have the technology today to do this. Like we could do this thing
Yes.
on the cloud where everybody involved could be uploading data with their device as this whole thing is taking place. But the other problem with that is with law enforcement when they're trying to say corner a serial killer or find a perp, they're considering that this may be a kidnapping or something. To be posting that information real time can help the perp get away. So that there's like these two conflicting things. It's like, we need this database and we need it to be public so that more people can so we can get more eyes on it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like if there's a possibility that it's just like a typical case of some kidnapper, you don't want to publicize it so we can catch them.
At least not in real time, yeah.
Right, at least not initially.
Yeah.
But
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's a way you could do that. You could set up a server where there's a private section on it.
Yes.
And
Yes,
it
true.
isn't until the case is over or they've decided to call off the search or whatever that you can then take that information and make those pages with the list of documents
right,
public.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we need to get them. We need to start getting them. We need to I think it would be great if we just had people who could go out in the field as writers and reporters and go and just take a case. Maybe not Dennis Lloyd Martin's because it's been done so much, but one of these other cases where it's important and things happen that in a way that don't make sense like that, especially if someone is found or a body is found.
Right.
And go and talk to the SAR leader and talk to the police and talk to the officers involved and talk to the searchers and talk to the family and write a whole book on that one case day by day, like we do with murder mysteries, right?
Yes.
If you go to the library, there's a whole section of murder mysteries.
Yeah.
We need to have books like this that people are willing to talk about cases just like that. Because we need a description, because what we get right now are just these little snapshots.
Yeah.
And we get told a detail here or there, like the one about the guy disappearing in Washington, and he wasn't around any cliffs, it wasn't any particular place that's hard to hide.
Yeah.
There's no reason for him to, to have a heart attack and drop now,
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't attacked by an animal. They didn't find any signs of anything.
Right.
But we need better descriptions, because that isn't much. That's a sentence or two, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas people were out here in the field on this for 2 weeks,
Yeah, they're talking about it the
and
whole
nobody
time.
knows what most of them saw most of the time they were in the field.
Right. That reminds me too of like there's been cases where when they end up finding the person that went missing, I think it was a kid in this particular one I'm thinking about. They find him, and I can't remember if he was alive or not. But they found him, and he basically went. It turned out that he from the spot he disappeared, he went straight up the hillside, which means that the campsite that he disappeared from was in his view the entire time. In other words, he couldn't have been lost because, like, you could see the campsite where he was supposed to be the whole time he was going up that hill or whatever. And then there's the one of the doctor in Colorado that where they found him,
where he crossed the he crossed the mountain and they found him that one was just bizarre on its own.
He had his legs were broken and but he had his cell phones he had a cell phone with a spare battery and it worked and it had signal in the places where he had apparently gone, but he didn't call anybody. He had a transponder that didn't get activated. It's just weird. It's a strange thing. Yeah. It's a very weird case, and that's one of the ones where there's no details. They just don't tell you anything.
Yeah. But people kind of blow this stuff off too.
Yeah.
And being out here and living out west, where a lot of these occur, I kind of, like you guys, I kind of know the lay of the land now. I know what it's like to be here.
Yeah.
Back in 1967, there was a boy named Danny Greenwood who disappeared from Reservation Lake, Mount Baldy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was one of those boys that climbed a mountain and died at the top of it from exposure, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy just to think about it. It's like, how are all these little kids climbing these mountains to the top of it?
Yeah.
It didn't die of exposure there when they didn't die halfway up.
Right.
Because it was cold at night in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
This little boy disappeared on June the 8th, 1967. It just so happens that Reservation Lake is to the southeast of Mount Baldy, right? Mm-hmm. To the northwest of Mount Baldy, about 20 miles, there's this little place called Lake Holly. And I know that place well, because I've camped there about a dozen times, okay? There is no way that little boy managed to climb that mountain just straight up the side of it. Right. Because in that particular part of the White Mountains over by Mount Baldy, it's not flat land. There's no flat land. It is up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's deep creeks where they have to build these little bridges across.
Yeah.
I mean, the trip back to once you get off the main road back to Lake Holly is it's switchback almost all the way. It's crazy how rough it is. So how does this little boy manage to go from the campsite and walk up this mountain when he has to stay somewhere either close to the trail or at least in the more open areas where you think it can be found? Because there's no way that little boy's going through that brush to get up the side of that mountain. It is thick through there. Every one of those little streams just have brush growing up on them that there's just impenetrable.
Yeah.
There's no way an adult could do it in some places.
Yeah, there's some places like that out here in Texas where we are.
You just can't walk through there.
You can't get through it at all.
At least not without ripping yourself up. You get multiple lacerations. And that does happen. They find find bodies sometimes like that, right? They say that.
Yeah. They occasionally find someone who's been scuffed up pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was particularly one of them.
Yeah.
But there's no way he made it up to the top of that in a day, climbing the side of that mountain, fighting with all that brush.
Right.
At some point, he would had to have been somewhere where you at least had a chance to see him, but nobody ever does.
Yeah.
But people will blow it off, say, "Oh, he just took off. He just wasn't on the trail."
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think
If he wasn't on the trail, he wasn't going very far.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
It's like when they find him without shoes and nobody questions like who takes their shoes off? Like people who want to throw out the paradoxical undressing. And I know you addressed this in your book, which is awesome, by the way. I did the same thing. I posted this enormous post on Reddit about it, and I got all these people pissed off at me because I was like, it's not happening. This is not what's happening. But anyway, they try to pass off the shoes missing as paradoxical undressing. I'm like, no one takes off their shoes.
Yeah.
They take off their coat or their gloves or their hat or whatever, but they don't take. No one says, "I'm cold, I'm taking off or I'm hot, I'm taking my shoes off."
My shoes off.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But that was interesting that you mentioned that, and I mentioned it. about the guy that walked out onto the lake in the wintertime and his tracks just stopped.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of cases like that Mr. Polite has actually put in his book.
Yeah.
One of them was in 2007, Robert Vernier, near Maryville. I believe that one was one of the weird little set that took place in Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Okay.
No, I take that back. He was one in Louisiana. He didn't end up on my map.
Oh.
Because he took place near Louisiana. He was headed back with friends. Got in an accident, hit a telephone pole. Okay?
Okay.
So he goes to get help. Not very far from the road. Not very far from a town.
Right.
When they went to, but he disappeared, and we went to look for him. They tracked him along a riverbank, and then all of a sudden he turned and he went up on top of a ridge. And when he did, the footprints stopped and the trail ended. The dog sat down. That was it.
Yeah.
There was another woman he wrote about called Emma Tress, but I didn't grab the year, and I apologize for that. She was on her way to a Benedictine monastery just over here in New Mexico that she liked to visit. She knew where it was at. She'd been there several times before. But she got out into the woods, and basically the same thing happened to her. She walked along a little creek that basically followed the road, walked up on top of a ridge, and boom, that's it. The trail ends there. There's no more footprints. Dog sit down. We're done.
So, I mean, that's like, why would she even, she's going to visit a monastery. Why does she just get out of the car and go? I don't understand that either.
No. But yeah, I mean, are these people confused? I mean, are they afraid to be out on the road?
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
That's another thing. Is like when they were talking about footprints, are they running? Because you can tell when you're tracking, like a good tracker can tell if that person's walking or running based on the imprint of the front of the toe.
Yeah.
You know, and how much dirt was kicked back.
And that's one of the details that would be great to have, but
Right.
they hardly ever appear in the story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because all we're told is just the very, 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 very outlines like that.
Right. I remember the 17-year-old that disappeared elk hunting, where he went with a big group of people and like he vanished, and they were going along his tracks, and they did say he was running. They said he was stumbling over. He kept tripping over roots that were hidden in the snow and everything, and they found like his tooth, and it's one of those cases where they find nothing but a tooth and like a piece of his skull or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
There was I don't know if you remember, but in one of the books there was a story of a guy that was skiing with some friends. Yeah, and he goes off to the side. They want someone to get their pictures as they ski, right?
Oh yeah.
He goes off to the side and he disappears. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then they go looking for him. They find his ski tracks, and they're like, he flipped out of here like he was being chased by the devil.
That's right. Yeah.
He took all these jumps and crazy, and then zoom off some cliff somewhere, and they never found him at the bottom of it.
That's right. He was an experienced skier, and like from where he had stopped, they were following his tracks. Like it was like he was fleeing for his life. He was going over crazy shit, just like trying to get away from something. He was.
Okay, so there was a one that you told me, Russ, where this guy was like he was a football player, or an athlete of some sort, and he was on a kayaking trip.
Yeah.
And he had his phone with him.
That's right.
And like he ends up calling his wife or somebody like that.
Yeah. They were gonna come pick him up.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's telling him he's being chased.
Yeah.
And he's like this big freaking dude, and like
who was not afraid of anybody. Yeah.
Wasn't he a football player?
Yeah, he was a
he had been a football player.
He was a
I remember the
quarterback,
story.
yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah, he was a quarterback. Like my dad was interested in this one because he was a football player. Like he was a big quarterback. He was like one of the stories they told about him was he would tell the lineman like, hey, let these guys hit me, like he didn't care, and like and then he calls his wife. He's out there on the water and he's like, okay, yeah, things getting kind of hairy here. Like I'm being chased by two people or whatever, and then at some point they lose connection and he calls back or they call him back or whatever, and he says, I'm getting off the water and I'm taking off my shoes.
And they found him. If I remember right, he still had his waders on.
Yeah, and he was found face down, which so many of these
face down with a bloody nose.
That's right.
And nobody. But I mean, that's more detail than we get from half of these stories.
Yeah, and they were saying that the suspenders for his waiters were like
Were twisted.
Were twisted up. Yeah. Yeah, which, to me that implied that somebody was holding him by those suspenders, and they kind of set him down on the ground, face down, from using those suspenders as a handle. Pilatus never comes out and says that, but I get the idea that's what he's trying to imply. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people don't die face down usually. If you fall down, you roll over on your back.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Call Infinity. That's Brett's found name. Yeah. Call Infinity, College Cube quarterback store. Yeah. Star. Yep.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When I was telling you about that gentleman that hiked the Pacific Crest Trail,
Yeah.
right? It's not like the places he passed through aren't active areas anymore. This is an interesting one because this guy had no way of going anywhere. His name is Alexander Joseph Sevier, and he disappeared the 3rd of May last year. He worked at the Portsmouth Naval Center back on the East Coast in Virginia. He was 24 years old. He was a hospitalman. He was seen near his campsite near the Merced River. And then he just disappears. They sent about 30 people, dogs, and a helicopter to look for him at one point. But as far as I know, they never found anything of him. And I got the link. I'm going to give that to you guys too.
Cool.
Be careful, Exile.
He didn't have a car.
Oh, yeah.
He actually took a bus into the park.
Yeah.
And was going to take a bus out, and they realized that he was missing when he didn't take the bus out.
Yeah.
And his stuff was still at the campsite after he was supposed to be gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so. Even last year was kind of a busy year. We had several disappearances in the country.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, the ones where they can't seem to, like there was one with a judge who had bad knees and couldn't really walk that far on his own, and they were fossil hunting, and they had taken him,
hunting for crystals, I believe.
Yeah, crystals or something like that, shrooms. I can't remember. They were hunting for something, and some of these people that disappear are mushroom hunters. But yeah, he had his own little area kind of on the side of this mountain, and they all had their own areas, and they kind of got him to his spot and then left him there, and he couldn't walk 100 feet without having to sit down, and he vanished without a trace.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever found him. It's like that guy couldn't go anywhere. It's like he couldn't walk,
Yeah.
So yeah, those cases where it's kind of impossible for people to disappear like that are also very interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on, and you can't. I know people do it because they don't want to believe, or it's kind of natural to be somewhat of a skeptic. But there's something more going on here, and we really just do need the way to start really getting some heavy information about what's happening in these cases and what's happening in these searches.
Yeah.
We've got to get some better details on all of this stuff.
Yeah. Like Blighted says, the FBI probably has a lot of those details because they send their profilers to this, but they won't give it out. Whatever it is. And I know somebody who works in the FBI now as a she's part of the emergency response evidence team. Like she comes in there and does. But she says that they have these massive databases of evidence that they will, it's like need to know, and you can't. She's like, I can't access it unless I need to know it for the case. So yeah, they don't even tell themselves the details that they've got. Much less.
It would. Oh, trust me. I mean, for some of this stuff where it's not really a matter of national security, and you'd say, well, this is just a person that disappeared, unless they know something about the disappearances.
Right. Exactly.
Which would be possible.
Yeah.
But even that could be redacted, and they could give us some of the information.
Yeah. But wouldn't you say, like, I could easily see how you could speculate that, like, if they had data that if it were public, it would sort of become widely known that there was a super predator that was taking people by the hundreds every year and without a trace or whatever, and doing who knows what with them, that kind of would be a national security problem because people would flip out. people would flip out about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. If you think about it, it's not the Rangers in the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That we we look at askance because they really are, like Mr. Politis says, they're good people.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Yep. They probably worked there unless they've been transferred for years and years.
Yeah.
They're as helpful as they can be.
Yes.
That's not where the problem lies. The problem in our government lies in Washington, D.C. There are people there who make six-figure salaries, and they get to live in the suburbs and send their kids to a good school and drive a Mercedes.
Yeah.
And they're not going to give that up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you? I mean, I'd be kind of slow. I
know.
I mean, money's one thing, but when you have like that kind of money shoved in your pockets, you might just want to go ahead and keep your mouth shut.
Right. I love it too. I see, like you see sometimes in the comments on these stories online, when somebody starts talking crap about the NPS, the National Park Service. Somebody always comes on there and goes like, "Oh, they just got their budget massively cut," and I'm like, dude, they have millions of visitors every year who pay to get in. And they get a government budget, so don't tell me that they don't have any money.
Yeah.
Like the estimated visitors to the National Park Service in 2016 or whatever was enormous. And if each person is paying to get into the park, that's a lot of money. I mean, we're talking like, I can't remember what it was, 80 million, something like that, or more than that probably. People who visited the park, so that's an enormous income across the entire system. Plus the $2 billion in government, funding that they get. So them whining about not having enough money to set up a database is just like, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. Come on, you got a database somewhere.
Right.
You've got a computer somewhere. Yeah. You've got some information on it. You at least know how many.
Yeah.
In total.
Right, but they don't want to. They don't want
at
to
least inside the
disincentivize all the people from keep coming.
Yeah.
To the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, there's somebody there to get to sit in Washington D.C. in a heated office, an air-conditioned office.
Yep.
They make good money,
and they don't really have to do
anything. They're not going to say nothing to us.
Like if somebody was like, "Hey, Russ, do you think you could run the national park system?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I could," because it's not hard. I mean, like they don't even have. It's not like they have massive facilities they have to maintain either. Like, what, you need to go rake a trail every once in a while? It's like it's not like they have enormous costs, overhead costs. And then they farm out all of the vendors, right? So the people, the stores on the parks are actually paying the park system to be there, and they handle all the employees and the stocking and everything like that. So the park system doesn't do anything but they just collect money from every side.
Yeah. That's why it costs $5 for a microwave burrito,
Right? Yeah, but I don't blame the vendors. They're just doing what they can. But the park system, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to maintain that store. They don't have to make sure that the stock is there. They don't have to worry about the employees because all that is done in house with the vendor. The park just collects money. It collects money from the vendors, it collects money from the people who visit the park, and it collects money from the government.
Yeah, but like Brett's kind of saying, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The population would know. If they finally came out with all that information, the population would know that the government had been aware and was helpless all the time.
Yes, that's right.
So it's like the longer they go, the less likely it is that they're going to turn it over.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, like the reason right now we don't know more is that the government's kind of helpless with it.
Yeah.
The government can't intervene and stop these yet.
Right.
We just don't. We're not there where
Yeah.
the government can go and retrieve somebody, knows how to do that.
Yeah.
And they might be a little more willing once they can to start, declassifying stuff. But they're not going to in the meantime, because in the meantime it just empties out the parks.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Because who's going to want to take the kids out to disappear?
Yeah.
There's also the sort of tendency we have to just slough it off and say, the guy just was like this dude that went missing from the ski resort in New York and ended up in California.
Took a ride with a trucker.
The news stories are like, once he's found, they're just like, oh yeah, he was over here, he must have taken a truck, whatever. And it's just over.
Yeah.
It's like there's just this lack of curiosity to really get to the bottom of the story.
Yeah, they treat him like he's like just another hippie on drugs or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, You know, the guy could have been a doctor.
Yeah, he was a fireman. He's like getting drug tested. He's not on drugs, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I would start with the simple thing is like, who at a ski resort, like you're at a ski resort and some guy just walks up to you while you're leaving and is like, hey man, can you just like take me to California? Yeah, as far as you can go. And I have
as far as I get from here, can you just like drop me off the ocean somewhere? It's like, that would be odd. I would be calling, you know, somebody and saying, hey, you know, can you check this guy out?
Yeah, and like nobody,
the hospital or something.
And nobody comes forward. Like nobody came forward and said, yeah, I picked that guy up at the ski resort and took him as far as this place. Like
no one ever came forward to claim that they had given him a ride. And like he left without like all of his stuff was in the lodge, like including his wallet and his ID. Like he was, you know, like I mean, if you're gonna just kind of bail like that and go to California, like you would at least take your wallet. Yep. So yeah, he didn't have anything.
Yep. Yeah, and
greetings.
And we do it pretty much no matter what. On June the 7th, 2016, over here in the Dalton Canyon picnic area in Santa Fe National Forest in New Mexico, a guy named Elliot Wolf disappeared. He's a famous songwriter.
Oh.
He worked for Paula Abdul. She mentioned him online about him disappearing.
Oh.
That's one of the new ones that I have. But you don't hear about that on the news or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we blow it off. We blow it off no matter who it is. And
yeah,
the guy's a millionaire. I mean, I can't imagine he would go out and want to, you know, commit suicide in a
it's like
in a forest like that.
It's like
nobody
that guy
said anything.
That guy in Australia, right, who was part of that big tech firm or whatever. He was doing real well. They were over in Australia to have a meeting, and he kind of went outside to call his girlfriend, and then suddenly he realizes he's lost.
Greetings.
But he's still on the phone with her, and then he calls his friends, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know where I am." They were kind of in a country club area, and he had been walking on the little paths and shit, and then like he was like, "I'm lost," and because the sun had gone down while he was on the phone. And then his friend said that he said, "Oh, okay, I see a light up on the hill there. I'm gonna go follow that." And then they never saw him again. And there was a huge search, or whatever. They found him, I think, months and months later, like way the hell away from anywhere, way down in the outback, basically, you know. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he was same deal. He was a wealthy guy, you know. He was like part of this big tech company, and they were doing all these great things and everything. And he had a beautiful girlfriend or a fiance or whatever. Just like there's no reason for him to wander off and kill himself. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how much money you have. You know, if you go out and you disappear in the woods, they're going to ignore you just like everybody else. Money doesn't have anything to do with it at all.
That's right. Yeah.
So, you know, and that's the sad part is, you know, just the inertia of just it not getting any resources, not getting enough resources, not getting enough eyes put on it.
Yeah.
You know, I say it in my book, and I'll say it again. You know, I just wrote that. I just threw out the ideas that I had, that I saw, that I found.
Right.
My hope now is that somebody else is going to come along
and pick it up.
Pick it up, run with it, take it, maybe help start getting some more information and talking to people more, and a website, something. We need somebody. You know, one person can't do this. There's just too many.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's just too many in every 10 years that disappear. No one person could cover all that.
That's just in this country too. I mean, it's a global phenomenon.
Yeah. And so there's got to be people that take enough interest in this, you know. And I understand. I have absolutely nothing against him, and I've never had really a negative interaction with Mr. Politis. I understand that there are some people who say that he's difficult or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that.
Right.
Because it really, at some point, has to stop mattering whether or not any one individual likes, you know, the direction that this stuff goes.
Right.
We just need to get the ball rolling.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm part of several like online forums that discuss the missing forum, and like a lot, like I would say that half the people that join are there to bitch about Politis. Like literally, that's what they want to do. And you know, or like it's people from abroad who want to complain that it's so expensive to order the books, and why doesn't he make them digital? And, you know, and it's just I'm just like, dude, you're missing the point. Like We are here to discuss this missing persons problem, and you want to come in here and talk about Politis. And Brett wants to come in and make a comment real quick. So,
go for it.
Yeah, come on, Bo.
So, as we were setting up for the interview a couple weeks ago when we first made contact, I went and I read some of the reviews for your book on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I started laughing hysterically because there's 2 5-star and 2 1-star. And the 2 1-star reviews, all he did is rip off Politis, and this is nothing new. And I was like, did you guys even read the book? Or did you just like look at the jacket? And within the community of people who are actually trying to figure it out, there's infighting from idiots who just, you know what I mean? It defeats the purpose. And that just cracked me up because we talk about on this podcast all the time, you know, how there are trolls everywhere.
Yeah.
And it just, I was like, this is such an important book, you know, like it is building on this thing. And you've got 2 people saying, you know, this is great insight. He's really done great work. And then you have 2 people saying, oh, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really?
And there was a third one. I had one taken down because you can when you get those reviews, you can get a hold of Amazon and say, hey, you know, I don't think they even read the book or anything, right?
Yeah.
And they actually took one down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I went and looked. I was startled at the reviews. I was like, what? And I saw those, and I was like, oh my god, he's got the typical trolls. They sound like people that are in the subreddit forum that I'm in. You know, they're in there just complaining about everything. Like, you guys.
Yep, and I've seen all the same things that you've seen.
Yep.
You know, I've seen people want to go in, and I don't mind that people want to put stories into those missing things about UFOs or paranormal, because we don't have an answer.
Right.
We don't have an answer.
Right.
But it's got to come back to the talking about the actual disappearances.
That's right. The only data that we have.
That's one of the things that one of the axioms sort of for this podcast really is that, you know, we're not necessarily wanting somebody to just shovel answers in our face, like because we don't have them, and we know that we don't have them. What we need to do is look at the evidence. We need to look at what is actually happening.
Follow the data
and go wherever it leads. Exactly. So,
and I also don't like answering a mystery with another mystery. You know, like, these people are being taken by aliens. Well, great. What are aliens? You know? Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we need pictures. We need eyewitnesses.
Yes.
We need, you know, it seemed to me that sooner or later, if we can just teach people to keep their eyes out, someone will see something. Yeah. Someone will accidentally photograph something or record something.
Yeah.
Sooner or later.
What do you think about those?
What do you
think about those cases? There's a couple in his books where he talks about the people who were missing for a while saw strange, what they would say is strange men, like kind of looking at them from the woods. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, that was the Dennis Lloyd Martin. The couple with their son went to look for bears.
Yeah, there was that one.
And they went up one of the other areas, and they heard this unearthly scream, they said, and looked up, and the boy said, "Look, Dad, a bear!" And the dad's looking at him, "Well, it's not a bear. It's got something tossed over its shoulder."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Oh man.
That's right. It had something. And then there was the other case. It was similar like that. It was a little boy who disappeared, and there was an old couple who was kind of hiking in another part of the park, and they didn't know about the disappearance. They you know, because it just happened. But they saw this little boy sitting on a ridge on this, like, way up high on this cliff, like way where, like, you know, where they were like, how did he even get up there? And then it looked like he was kind of yanked backwards, like something grabbed him from behind and jerked him back from the ledge. And then when they went home that evening, they saw all the news that there was this huge search.
And then they called. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that they had seen this boy way up on this, and it was like on the other side of the park. This is during the search. But there's some cases of people who actually see men, like what they call people, or like kind of like what Colin Finnerty said. Yeah, that there were men in the woods. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to mention, if you remember, when it came to the Dennis Lloyd Martin, it was Mr. Politis that talked to some of the park rangers, and one of them told him off record. Yeah. Yeah, there's these wild men that live in the woods. It's
right.
Like, really? Are you putting that one out there for us?
Yeah. Just,
you know, we don't. Yeah. At least the state of Washington puts up a sign that actually, you know, they kind of recognize Bigfoot lists, right?
Yeah.
Watch out for bears. Watch out for mountain lions.
And
watch out for Bigfoot.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Warning, Sasquatch.
Yeah, we need awareness. We need awareness, and we need people to get involved and look into some of this stuff.
Stay in the light.
Because of where I live in Arizona, down here in the desert part, I don't get to spend a lot of time where there's a lot of these cases. There's only those two on the other side of town.
Yeah.
And they're still kind of fresh, and I don't think I want to bother that girl, her mom and everything, because she wouldn't know anything anyway.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But there's other cases that I think that if we wanted to pursue, and we could get people who seriously wanted to write and who seriously wanted to get into the subject and start helping us untangle it. And then if we could just get that awareness.
Yeah.
When you're in the park, pay attention. When you're in the woods, pay attention.
I wonder if we could start. If we could start a website like you were talking about, because I mean, like a lot of the missing persons websites online are run by, they're just run by people. They're not run by any kind of organization. Yeah. Like the Charlie Project. That's just one girl. She runs that thing herself.
Oh yeah, and she's nice. I've actually emailed her before because she had a case up there that ended up being taken down off the missing cases sites, and she's like, yeah, I guess I'll have to take him down then.
Did you read her review of the 411 books? I always throw that at the skeptics. I'm like, you think you know a lot about missing people? The girl who does the Charlie Project knows a lot about missing people, and go read her review of these books, okay? Where she was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And that's just it though, it's unfortunately, I understand Mr. Polite is wanting to keep the price down and making it local and, keeping, because they're his books. I understand. I know there can be some shady websites and, and people try to, get something for free all the time, just literally all the time anymore. Yeah. But the reason I put that one up there on Kindle is because I want people to have access to it. Exactly.
Rather people read the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if we're going to have this as a discussion, like I said, it needs to be more than just titillation and something new and exciting that we're getting about, and could it be aliens? We need to answer this because, there's a woman on the other side of the city where I live who's missing a daughter today.
Yeah.
Real deal, man.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started reading these books, I remember it affected me for weeks. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of walked around in this sort of, I was having this, mental shift. Like, okay, there is something that is highly intelligent and impossible to deal with, that is hunting us and has been for who knows how long. Like, that is a huge kind of mental shift to take, right? To go from we're top of the food chain to maybe not.
Maybe we're not even close, right?
Yeah. That's a pretty big shift.
So I have a question for you. You do a lot of hiking and stuff. Have you ever had any strange experiences out in the woods? Anything that you can't explain?
Like I said, that's the odd thing. I really haven't. I have never seen, smelled, heard anything. Even though, I'll tell you what, you talk about blind luck. When I would camp out at Lake Holly, it's one of those places where they used to even have these cabins that went up the side of the mountain, and I've driven by them before, and they're all falling down. The only thing left are the chimneys, because it's just one of those things in the 50s, right? Yeah. But like you saw in Dirty Dancing, all of that's gone now, right? Okay. I mean, people don't go do that anymore. But they still had the little campground around the edge of the lake, and they had some people that stayed there overnight, and it did have a couple of other campers. And I would always pitch my tent a good distance away over towards the road and stuff. This is before I ever read the Missing 411 books. Right. I'm out there in this little flimsy tent that's barely big enough for me in the middle of summer because I love camping out, and I love fishing, and I love looking up at the stars and hiking.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I could have been one of those people.
Yeah, you never disappeared though.
I never disappeared, but I was out there.
Yeah, and now
the right spot.
Now whatever's actually doing the disappearing is damn it, because you wrote this book, right? It's They're
Yeah,
like,
should have taken him while I had
yeah,
the chance.
should have taken him out. It's like he's like revealing this. Yeah.
But yeah, so I've never had an experience myself, but yeah, that's one of those things that now I think I would be a whole lot more careful and cautious about.
Right. See, that's one thing I've wondered is like, did I experience something and not know it because I wasn't aware that I should be paying attention? Right.
Yeah, now that's totally possible. This is Indian reservation land up in that area, Lake Holly. There were cows like wandering around the area.
Yeah.
I actually took pictures of the lake, like with the fog, and it was this little spit of land that goes out with a tree at the end of it and a cow. It's a great picture.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I was there. Everything's right. And there's obviously a source of food other than me around, so you know, nothing like that. And that's the other thing. One of the things that I want to do research on that I haven't gotten to yet, because I have been working on so much other stuff.
Yeah.
Like the book I just finished is, I would like to know how these disappearances compare to the deer population in the country over the time. 'Cause you remember there was a real time when the deer were overhunted back in the 70s and the 80s, and then they kind of put in conservation rules.
Right.
And now the deers
Are everywhere.
basically everywhere again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was.
So,
I'm
wait.
wondering.
So, as a food source for whatever this entity is, like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. That's what he's saying. Like.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So, if the population
I wonder-
drops because of overhunting, then those things go elsewhere.
Or they start.
Well,
hunting
I'm
us.
wondering if the number of disappearances would like correlate.
Yes.
Right?
Would correlate.
Like the population of these things has anything to do with the population of food.
Yeah. Wow. So in California, there's the thing where they got rid of all the wolves, right? In the park. What's the name of the park?
Which one?
I don't know. There's some big park. They tried to get rid of all these wolves, and after they did that, it, like, screwed up all kinds of stuff. But I think it was that the elk population skyrocketed after that, and then the tree population started just declining because the elk were destroying it. And so now they're reintroducing the wolves to take the elk population back down. So it'd be an
that was up
interesting
near
thing to look at.
Yosemite. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so as the elk population
Yeah,
drops,
and it-
maybe see an increase in disappearances. I don't know. It could also be related.
It would just be interesting because Mr. Politis also mentioned it. I don't know if he mentioned it too much, but it seemed like somewhat of a dip in the number of disappearances in the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much that would correlate.
So
That's
okay,
an
so let me
interesting
get this
idea.
clear. Are you thinking that if the local food population in terms of deer or elk goes down, that the disappearances of humans will also go down, or will it go up?
Yeah, because if it's that intelligent, it would be probably limiting its reproduction. If it is just a predator, a regular predator, of course it doesn't look anything like a regular predator that I can tell.
Right. I was thinking
yeah.
like it could also be possible that the number of human disappearances goes up because they become the food source.
Could be. You would think that there would be a lot more people disappearing than that, though, if that was the case.
Right. They'd have to have like
They'd have to feed on people regularly.
or like they would have to have a metabolism of a snake, where you could eat one giant thing, and then go for a long time after that without eating anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that would be a slow-moving animal. I mean, that's not likely.
yeah.
Some of the stories just doesn't add up really
Right.
to look at it as a food source so much. But if the deer population was a food source, then where the population was higher, you could see
There
being more disappearances because that's what.
Yeah.
That's
Yep,
an
and if you
interesting
look at the
idea.
places on the map where there aren't any disappearances, there probably aren't as many deer as there are in the places where there are. This is the only reason I brought that up. That I've heard.
And that's true. Like the Great Plains, that deer don't really like the big grasslands.
Yeah.
So what do you think is happening when they find, like Charles McCullers, where they find like fragments of bone, and that like he was apparently like disarticulated, like he was taken apart, you know. So if they're not eating them, what are they doing? What's going on?
Yeah, and that's the part of it that I think that we understand the least about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Because some people seem like they are killed or they die.
Yeah.
Some people are found alive.
Yeah.
And some people aren't found at all, right?
Yes.
So you really have those three different streams.
Right.
And then the problem is we don't have enough people that are found alive
That can
or
talk about it.
found. Yeah, a good chunk of them just aren't found at all.
Yeah.
And it's so many that it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I would also say this, that it occurs to me that the intent is less a matter of food than just a matter of some sort of maliciousness for some reason.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see also, I'm trying to jump on subjects here, but it would be interesting to see a map similar to the one that you made, but about cattle mutilations and see if there's any correlation
There is
there.
a correlation. I think I remember that.
Yes, now that would be interesting, but this is the kind of thing where we need to get people involved, because I don't know enough about the cattle mutilations, and right now I just don't have the time to start that whole thing from scratch about cattle mutilation.
Come on, guy.
Come on, man.
But we need somebody who knows to make us a map.
Yeah.
Yes,
So we can-
exactly.
Yeah, who's that guy that wrote the massive cattle mutilation book recently? He could do it. He's got him. He just wrote 2 books. He was on Where the Road Goes Well. Talking about this book.
Yeah, and we do get some information that comes out. Do you remember the book about Bigfoot in Pennsylvania?
No. What's that?
Oh well, let me look that up for you, because that's
Okay.
because he did an interview too, and I think it was also on Where Did the Road Go.
Okay, I probably heard it then. Yeah.
But he was talking about how they were talking about Bigfoot differently in Pennsylvania. That in the 1800s and the early 1900s, right? I found it. I got it right here. I'll send you the link for it.
Cool.
That they called them wild men.
Yeah, the wild men. Yeah.
Just like the
Park
Rangers.
Yeah, they have wild men.
They called them wild men.
Yeah.
And then once they discovered gorillas, they started describing them as more like gorillas.
Yeah. I remember that progression. Yeah. Like, because you can find wild men reports even in like Victorian England and stuff. Like.
And Russia.
Yeah.
That's what they think of them over there. They call them wild men.
Yeah.
They never did really pick up the word Bigfoot.
Right. And the Native Americans here also refer to them as people. They're not animals. They're people. They're hairy. But they have tribes and they're people. Oh, Christopher O'Brien. That's right. Yeah, Christopher O'Brien is the guy that did cattle mutilation most recently. I mean, maybe contact him and see if we can get a map.
Yeah,
That'd be
because
awesome.
if we can start getting data and just cross-referencing it,
Yes.
that would give us even more of a pattern. So we can squeeze down into areas where this is really not just clusters, but a little bit larger of an area where, okay, so what happens in here happens pretty regularly. And then we can start talking to people and saying, okay, so what happened here? What happened there?
Right.
We've got like almost Mr. Plitus gave us basically just like a huge canvas, right? And it's got like 4 lines drawn on it.
Right. That's right.
And that's it.
Yep.
We need to fill in the rest of the canvas.
Yes, and I think I was saying before. I think that we could start, or whoever, not necessarily us, but somebody could just start the website, and then like as long as it was done correctly, like search and rescue people would start to learn about it. Like, oh, I can go on this website and sort of give data, because they do want to share their data, because they're like their goal is to help people who get lost in the woods, and like sharing data is one way to do that, right? But right now there's not a resource for it, so.
Yep, and they do have, to where the SAR leaders and some of the more experienced people get together and have conferences.
Yes, they have
Mr.
conferences.
Plight has spoken at them before.
Yeah, and then
we just need somebody who's got the resources to be able to tap into this stuff and start taking the ball and seeing where this goes.
Have you read there's a blog of a search and rescue guy. His last name is Mahood. Online, he's been involved in a bunch of searches, and he actually is annoyed that there's nowhere to give his data, because he has all these maps and all this stuff of where he's gone looking for, because there's a couple of cases where they didn't find the person who was missing, and he still looks for them years later.
I've heard of him. I've seen some of his stuff. I don't follow it regularly, but yes, I've seen that exactly where he was talking about that, being frustrated about it.
Yeah, and it is like that is a fascinating blog for anybody who's interested in missing persons cases, because this guy goes out and like bushwhacks around looking for them. And like there's this one guy he went looking for in the desert or whatever that they didn't find during the big major search, that he is still looking for over a decade later. And he's got all these maps of everywhere that he's gone in the area, you know, and he like sits there and he like writes these enormous articles on what he thinks is going on and like how the cell phone, you know, because they got a ping from the guy's cell phone, but he thinks it might have bounced off the flip wall and like, you know, like gave the wrong location. Yeah, Tom Mahood is the
Yep.
On the other hand,
I read that particular article you're talking about. I remember reading that.
Yeah. Other hand, or
like, well, where'd the guy go?
Yes. Yeah. And he still hasn't found him, and he like, you know, he's like, I don't know, I don't even know where to search now. And like, I think that that's a missing 411 case. That's why he hasn't been able to find him. 'Cause it's not just a guy that got lost. Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, I wish I could have afforded to do some of this stuff. I would be glad to pitch in. But yeah, we definitely need to get some people to get started, at least thinking about.
Yeah.
And trying to consider where we need to go from here, because you know, I've been reading to you cases from last year. I gave you like 3 cases just from last year.
Yeah.
1 from the year before, a couple from the year before that.
Yep.
That's not all that I have.
Right.
Just from the last few years since I wrote that.
It's still happening, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes. And it's like,
still happening.
And Politis implies a couple times that it's actually ramping up. He's like, it seems to be getting, like, it's either the reporting is getting better or there are more cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it probably is. But because it's hard. It is hard because I'm from a small town. I'm from Portsmouth, Ohio.
Yeah.
That those old newspaper articles,
Yeah.
they're mostly online now, and most of the pages are there.
Yeah.
But if you really want to do a thorough search, you got to go to the Portsmouth Library. And
Right.
you've got to plop yourself down at the desk. And you got to grab a big stack of these old papers that are all on these wooden rods.
Yeah.
And you have to flip through them by hand.
Oh, so they're not even. It's not even microfiche. It's still on the wooden rod. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, some of them are. They keep them like that for so long.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I'd almost rather have the hand ones than have the microfiche. I've used that before.
Yeah, that's
because I've searched for stuff, and that thing's a pain.
Yeah, it's brutal.
5 pages and everything.
And it starts to hurt your eyes and everything. Like, I hate the screens.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, I had another question. Damn, I lost it.
Man, you got like just talking with you today and listening to your podcast with Where Did the Road Go is like got me thinking about this whole thing in a new way too. And I'm like really into looking for arrowheads. You know, and we were just out on a ranch where there's this huge Indian mound, you know, like a refuse mound, and we're digging in it, and me and Russ we're trying to figure out like how did they build this thing and what is it, like what are we digging in? It's just this massive pile of rocks, and it's got artifacts and all this stuff, and we can't figure it out.
Doesn't make sense as a cook fire, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it's
enormous.
So I'm thinking about the whole thing with the missing persons and the wild men and all that in this context of like, okay, if these are wild men or something and they're living on the land, there should be signs, like they have to have tools. There has to be something, you know, some way that they live if this is like not a supernatural thing or high technology.
Yeah.
So that's kind of got me thinking about it. Like these places where people go disappear, like where they disappear, are there old, you know, ancient mounds, Indian mound camps and all that kind of stuff around there? Is this a place that has been inhabited for a long time?
That's not a good question.
Because we don't, you know, really, when it comes to these arrowheads, these stone artifacts, we don't know who made them.
Yeah.
I mean, like seriously, if there is Bigfoot or if there are other, you know, intelligent hominids walking around in the woods,
they could be making them.
They could have been making them. They could have been their stuff. And granted, there have been, you know, human skeletons recovered at some of these places, but
Right.
But they could have been. They could have been disappearances.
Yeah. That's right.
I can tell you this much. I can give you an interesting tidbit because I've traveled around the state of Arizona considerably, and I've been to a lot of these places. I've been to Tutsagut, I've been to Montezuma's Castle, Montezuma's Well. I've been to Waputki,
Farewell.
which is way up on the other side of Flagstaff. I've been to the ones out by Lake Roosevelt, which were Sinaloa. So I've traveled around and I've looked at these, and I can tell you this much: it's really odd. If you look at even up in the northern parts of the state where there are trees, because people, they forget there's a huge swath of trees across the northern part of Arizona. The White Mountains are all, the highest peak, Humphreys Peak, is like 12,600 feet. That's high altitude. There are forests up there. There's elk, there's deer, there's mountain lions, there's bear. Very few of those Indian ruins are actually built inside the forest line.
Yeah, I remember.
The vast majority of them fall outside of the forest line, including Waputki, and it's a huge one. It's actually like two sites that are really close to each other. They're a couple of miles apart, but even those are built a couple of miles on the other side of the forest.
It's like they wouldn't
from Flagstaff.
Yeah, so there are old legends, from the Native Americans that said there were like these red-headed giants and stuff that they fought with.
Yeah.
Didn't get along.
And I wouldn't be so quick to blow that off.
Yeah,
No.
we don't at all. Yeah. I don't blow that off at all. I think that their oral histories are a lot more accurate than the one that the Europeans made up after they got here. They've been telling themselves stories about these places for 12,000 years, or whatever. So they probably have a lot of interesting information. And reality is weird. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, and this is so. These disappearances happen, and they're just so disconnected from one another that they appear random if you don't pay attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And people don't
That's
pay attention. They're out in the park to have fun.
that's one of the things that makes it seem intelligent.
That's right.
They're
It seems like they're doing it on purpose.
separated enough to where you wouldn't notice it.
Yeah. Except for a couple of nerds, online, like,
They're like us.
Yeah, exactly. These cases look like, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully we can spur things along. That's all I'm looking to do.
Yeah. So
Other people who have better ideas, and
I remembered my question. What do you think about the clusters where there's a similarity in appearance or gender? Like, there's a place where it's like all the disappearances within a 20-year period are like males between, this age and that age that have sort of short cropped sandy blonde hair and they're kind of chunky. And there's a couple of females that disappear in that, but they also kind of look like that. You know what I mean? They're kind of chunky.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
that would go back to where it's one of those things where I would say that is kind of like malicious. That's part of it where it feels to me like that's a malicious, intentional thing. That most animals have somewhat, a respect for the females of the species.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that, you take on the other males.
Right.
And being even if it's a cross species like that, if it's something that's thinking in that traditional way, or that natural, instinctive way, that would make sense. And there's a couple places like that. I think most of the ones that occurred in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park were boys.
Yeah.
They weren't really super young, but they were all boys, I believe, or mostly boys.
Right.
And then the most of the precursors to the Oklahoma and Arkansas, which we didn't really get into, were mostly boys, except for the first two, I think, which were girls.
Now, see, did those?
But they disappeared near Devil's Den State Park,
Oh, yeah.
just to the south of it, a little town to the south of it. And then over like the next 20 years, It's like the disappearances started moved southeast from that, and then he made this big counterclockwise circle,
Right.
ending up in Devil's Den State Park.
Again, yeah, right. But
Devil's Den.
Yeah. So did the girls that disappear have any kind of physical appearance similarities to the boy? That's what I mean. Like if there's,
Probably.
yeah. That's what I find. Like why are they only abducting like short, stocky, blonde-haired kids that are male, and then they got a couple of females, obviously by accident, because from behind you might mistake that girl for a short, stocky, blonde, guy or whatever. That's
Or a thin boy, yeah.
yeah. I find that to be very weird. Like, in other words, that's more than just predation. Like, why are they specifically going after those appearances?
In that case, though, like I said, it's because we don't know more, because we don't have insight into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell whether it is a matter of that being instinctual.
Yeah.
Like we think of people, people in train wrecks, have been known to be drowning but hand their baby up to someone else, right? Because
Right.
your instinct kind of takes over at a point. We don't know if this is like that kind of normal instinct, but that would also kind of be a social instinct.
Yeah.
So it's base, but it's still not base like a bear or a mountain lion would be, right?
Right.
Because people aren't really attacked by mountain lions very much.
Right.
But when they do, they don't seem to
The mountain lions
pick.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're doing it because they're hungry, and that's
Right.
the only reason.
They are equal opportunity killers. Right.
Exactly. It's just men are out there more.
Right.
Yeah.
So have you noticed in the politest cases that there aren't a lot of minorities? Like, not even enough to match up percentages. And I guess that could be because, I don't know why that is, but like it's the vast majority of the disappearances are white people, at least in the United States. Now, I assume that if you went to other countries, it's probably not the same.
Yeah, and it seems to be that way. I know there were some in Sumatra and Java and other places like that, and those seem to be just the locals.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, isn't it interesting that whatever's doing this seems to be taking the locals? Like, in other words, we have a mixing of like races and ethnicities here, but like it's rarely a Hispanic guy or like there are some Asians. But it's just mostly, like white people. And then like, I don't know, I find that to be interesting. Like that's also, I guess you could say it's instinct, but it seems to be more than that. Like it's purposeful.
Maybe coming from the countryside, a lot of rural areas outside the South, like my hometown, don't have large populations of black people, so there wouldn't be very many disappearances overall.
Right, but in Georgia,
and considering where these,
we grew up in Georgia, it's like 50%.
Yeah, and see, I grew up in Ohio, and in southern Ohio, it's like maybe 1%.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to say about that because we just don't have a big enough data set yet.
Yeah.
Probably if you were able to go right now and do another search and scrape up my list plus Mr. Politis's plus more, we're probably getting close to where we would know about it, maybe 1,800 at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not that we would know them all.
Right.
There would probably be,
who knows how many there are,
20% of that more that we don't know about because they're in some newspaper that doesn't exist anymore, and the building burnt down, and there's no more copies of it from the 50s or whatever.
Yep.
My grandfather lost his birth certificate when the courthouse burnt down. He wasn't able to get his birth certificate anymore.
Oh man!
Because that's what it was like back in the 40s and the 50s and 30s, right?
That's right.
They didn't have microfiche and computers, and everybody's information was out there for everybody else to grab.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, we got to keep that in mind too. Is that
There's also even how many people we don't even know that they're missing, and they just find a body.
Yeah.
It's
There's so many unclaimed or unidentified bodies.
And so
there's no story.
To,
there's no backstory for that at all. It's just like you find a body and that's it.
Yeah. So and that's another angle. Do we need to look through the database of people that are John Does and John Day.
The name of
from out in these wooded areas.
Yeah.
And go backwards and see if we can find people. See if we can find cases to match them.
Yeah.
See if we can get DNA.
Yeah.
It's just,
overwhelming.
Mr. Clyde has kicked this door open. And it's this huge room, and we don't know what's out there at the other end of it. We don't know what we're going to find in here.
Right. Sparkly robots. You know? That's creepy, man. You just freaked me out right there.
That's yep. Yeah. I mean, like literally a few miles from here, there could be something that is eating people.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. There have been people stalked, by mountain lions and the bears every once in a while in the woods, and they get away, right?
Yeah.
Because the bear and the mountain lion isn't really looking to tangle with them so much.
Yeah.
And I've even seen videos of it up on YouTube.
Yes.
One guy where a mountain lion was following him around, and he stopped and he looked at him. The mountain lion's like, I'm just along for the walk, man. And he just walked away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's say that on average, a predator will attack somebody 20% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we know of about 2,000 let's say just 2,000.
Yeah.
Over the last 100 years, that's like 20 people a year. But what if that's only like 20% of the people that are actually
Being stalked.
don't know it,
Yeah.
but being stalked or being watched,
Yeah.
or being
Well-
scanned or whatever the case may be, because we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stories. I mean, you can find plenty of stories of people online who, like, they went into the woods and they had some weird, high strangest experience where everything got quiet and they felt really freaked out, and and they take they're like everything's strange, like everything got quiet, and then I didn't know what was going on and I took off. Yeah.
Yeah. I when I asked you if you had experienced anything,
Stay
I
in
was
the light.
the only experience that I've ever had to that sort of level was something like that, where I'm in the woods in a place where I was working. Me and Russ were working. We were hiking a ravine. He was on another ravine, and I was in this one with my dog. And the dog, just took off in front of me, and I couldn't find her. She went off, but that. After she left, I felt the sensation that something was following me or something. Just had that weird feeling of being followed or being watched or whatever, and I just booked it. Got out of there.
I remember that. You were telling me about it over the radio.
Yeah, we had radios, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, you were like, hey, can you shout for me? And I shouted. He was like, okay, you're not over there.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. And that seems to be the case. We get little glimpses. We just need more.
Yeah.
There's a story that was in one of the groups on Facebook of a guy who was bicycling, and for some reason, I can't remember now, I don't know if he fell or if he just slid in the mud or whatever happened, but he stopped his bicycle up in the side of this mountain. Fortunately he was with some friends. But he describes all of a sudden feeling incredibly hot and starting to take his clothes off. When his other bicycle buddies rode up and go like, hey, what are you doing?
What are you doing, man?
Right? And then he's like, they're like, did you see that? I mean, they're like, something was here and it took off.
Oh, shit.
When we come up. We just don't have enough to really piece together, what, who, how this is happening. We just need so much more work into this. Yeah. And so much more people just being willing to keep an eye out and see something, like the government slogan.
See something, say something.
See something, say something.
Yeah.
Put it up on Facebook. Make people aware of it.
See something, run.
Yeah, see something, run, and then say something if you get back, right?
See something, GTFO, then talk about it. Yeah, that's right. I remember looking at the list, in Devils in the Details, that book that he published. I think it's the 4th. But there's a big list in the back where he lists all the cases that he's got so far, and kind of gives a little bit of data about them, how far away they were found, if they were found, or whatever, and the dates, right? And I remember I looked at that list and I was like, I wonder if anybody's ever tried to correlate these disappearance dates to astronauts. phenomenon, like the lunar cycles. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that would also be interesting. You know, I mean, is it during certain times of the? I would say it this way: if you don't have to be like some big brawly hunter who's going to drive 30 miles out in the woods and then hike another 20. He's out elk hunting with a 22, and all he takes with him is a Snickers bar and water, right?
Yeah.
In Yosemite Park, if you want to disappear, go there on a Wednesday afternoon by yourself, park at the far end of the parking lot, lock your car, and get out on the grass.
Right. That's it.
Because most of those disappearances happen right around those buildings.
Yeah.
That's right. That's crazy. That's like you said.
Which is crazy and insane all of itself.
Yeah. Bold, like you said. Whatever's doing it, it's bold. Just go to the suburbs of LA and just stand there for a minute.
Yeah, well.
Different kind of distance.
Yeah, that's a drive-by. We know what that is.
Oh man, this has been great. Yeah. This is we're well over 2 hours there, so this is
oh yeah.
Yeah, but this has been a fascinating, excellent conversation. Seriously.
Oh, thank you very much. I have had a blast. Like I said, I did that interview with him with Phrecia, and because of technical issues, really didn't get to go everywhere that I wanted to go. Yeah. And I appreciate being able to get some of this stuff off my chest.
Hey, Matt.
That's why I put that map together last winter, because we just need to get people involved.
Yeah. I'd actually like. I think that there's much more, like you were saying, there's stuff we didn't go over. So I would be willing to have you on again at some point, maybe another month or two or whatever. We'll get you back on here and keep going, because like this, I think this subject is extremely important. I mean, people are disappearing, and something is doing it. So I would be totally willing to have you back on here again to keep talking about this, to keep coming up with ideas and stuff. So we'll talk about that in email and see what we do. Yeah, that would be great.
Give a plug for your site,
books,
your Facebook site, your books, whatever you want, man. Go for it.
All right. So on Facebook, all you do is you can just go search. You don't have not my personal site, just Tom Spriggs. My last name is spelled Spriggs. I have a public page there on which I just put books. I just put that map. I just put stuff relating to the work that I'm doing, so you don't have to worry about running into anything else on it. The book, just go to Amazon.com, look up Into Nowhere.
Yeah.
And it will pop up as one of the first ones. I keep the price down. I only charge like $7.99 for it.
Yeah,
so
it's very reasonable, yeah.
And like I said, it's just because I want to get it out. I want people to read it, and I want them to know.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. You have a print version and the Kindle version, right?
The print version they rejected, and I need to work on it. But I was working on that other book and the map, and I haven't had a chance to fix it yet. That's coming soon.
That's
though,
right. I remember you saying
cool.
something about it. Was something about all the graphics you have in there. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Well, no, they for some reason something got messed up in the pagination on it.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's what they really got me for, more than the maps itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks, we'll
go. If you read the book on Amazon, write a great review for him and a review about why somebody else is an idiot for saying he's just stealing from Politis.
That's right.
That's what I was going to say.
There you go.
Give him a good review, folks.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure, man.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it greatly, and you have a good evening.
You too. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. That's it for this episode of Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We thank you for listening. That was Thomas Spriggs. His
Nonstop.
Book, Into Nowhere. Yep, a nonstop episode, no breaks.
That's right. No breaks, nonstop.
I didn't even notice. It was freaking awesome.
Fantastic.
So yeah, you can check us out on the blog at brothersoftheserpent.blogspot.com. You can email us at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. Go on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever. Give us some reviews.
Everywhere.
Go visit Spriggs' site.
Yep.
Talk to him on Facebook. Make some comments. Download his book. Check it out. He's obviously
give his book some good reviews.
Yeah.
Because, like trolls.
Yeah.
Gotta beat the trolls, guys.
But yeah, that was a great conversation, man.
Yeah, it was.
Really got me thinking. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Thinking I'm never going into the woods again. That's what I'm thinking.
Because of snakes.
Snakes.
Journey well.
Break 2. Break 3. The end.